What's going on, guys? Welcome back to today's video. In today's video, I am going to cover why, I guess 5 reasons why, I chose this car over buying a Porsche 911. Specifically, I was looking at the 991 911, but this also applies to the 997s and 991.2s and so on and so forth. So if you guys were considering a cross-shopping this C6 Z06 versus a Porsche, you've come to the right video. This is the video for you. And a lot of these these are going to be some controversial ideas. And if you guys have any comments on this, I'd love to see them down below. Let me know what you guys think. Tell me how wrong I really am. I'm always happy to hear it. I read every single comment, by the way. I'm not always able to respond to all of them. I do enjoy when you guys comment, and I do enjoy reading each and every single one, especially the ones that are most negative. So let's go ahead and get started with these 5 reasons why the C6 Z06 really is better than Porsche 911. So the way we're going to do is we're going to start with the most obvious, least controversial opinions that I have, and we're going to end with the most controversial and salty issue that I have with Porsches, right? So reason number 1 really has to come down with the price. I mean, let's be honest. The price of a Porsche 911 versus the price of one of these things is night and day for now. And I say for now because I think these cars are due to increase in pricing in the next 5 to 10 years. I think we're starting to see that already. So keep that in mind if you're in the market for one of these things. The price will be going up here soon. So when I went to buy a Porsche 911, there were some requirements, right? It either has to be a manual or a PDK. I did not want anything to do with that crappy slush box that they put in some of these 911s. So it really limits you to which vehicles you could even buy, right? So in 2009 was when the PDK was offered for the 911s, and they had these weird buttons on the steering wheel. I hate those. So really my requirement was for 2012 and up, so 991s with the aftermarket or possibly a factory flappy paddle, you know, the nice paddles, not the stupid button thing that they were doing. It was horrible. So that was really my main requirement for a 911. It's either the PDK or a manual. Now, as we know, manual Porsches are way more expensive than PDK or automatic Porsches. So what are we talking about price? So for a regular Carrera S, sorry, not even an S, regular Carrera, you're talking about $45,000 to $55,000 for a really nice example. I'm not really in the mood to deal with something with over 100,000 miles. I was looking for them to be around 50 to 80,000 miles. That's kind of the sweet spot for me, a poor person, right? You know, most people are like, well, if it has more than 20,000 miles, I don't want it, and you're going to be paying 80 grand for a Porsche 911, and if that's what you want to do, hey, that's all on you. The next thing I noticed was, you know, when pricing these things out, is I didn't want a base model, right, a regular Carrera. I wanted something with at least a limited slip differential, for God's sake, right? I'm buying a sports car here, not a family sedan or an SUV. I want something with a good limited slip differential. In case you guys don't know that, what that is limited slip differential when you're in a corner, especially, and you apply the throttle, the tire, the inside tire, right, the one with the least amount of weight on it, usually will start spinning if you don't have a limited slip differential. A limited slip basically locks the tires and limits the amount of spin one tire does versus the other. And that limit is really monumental when taking corners, especially on a track. But even when you're trying to do burnouts or, you know, stupid stuff with a car, you want your car to have a limited slip differential. So for those, you basically have to go with a Carrera S, and, you know, fine and dandy. So a Carrera S 991, newer than 2012, with PDK or manual, is going to cost you $60,000 to $70,000 with around 50,000 miles. Go do your own research. Prove me wrong. If there's better deals out there, buy it. Better yet, let me know so I can buy it. But yeah, I wasn't really finding anything for under 60 or 70 grand that was really worth our time here. So yes, there's much cheaper Porsche 911s to have, but do I really want an automatic 2006 convertible? No. The answer is absolutely not. Those are terrible. They can all die in a fire, in my opinion. So, pricing really, really gets you. For $35,000, $40,000, this car right here, you get way more performance, and you're spending way less money than those cars. So, pricing is really a huge reason why I went with Corvette versus going with a Porsche 911. Speaking of price for performance, that's another thing. Performance compared to this, it's hard to compare the 911S, a 991 911S, to the performance of this thing. One of my favorite YouTube channels out there is Josh Veld's, The Racing Mind, I believe is his name. He's got a yellow C6 Z06, and he's building out his to be a GT3 killer. Now, GT3 is very important because the GT3 is extremely high performance, and I would take a GT3 over this if the pricing was the same. It's not. You cannot find basically any GT3 for less than 120 grand, 130 grand. That's just a whole different price point here. We're talking 35, 40 grand for this car. So very, very different. And the fact that you can take one of these, put, let's say 10, 15 grand into it, and go hunting for Porsche 911 GT3s tells you everything you need to know about this compared to a Carrera S. Carrera S is not a slow car by any means. It's definitely not a slow car, but it's not going to be fast compared to this in a straight line or even in taking corners. People will argue that these cars are, very good in a straight line. They're very good on the track, but the feeling is not quite as good as the feeling you would get from a 911. And I've driven 911s, a few of them. My brother-in-law has one, a very well-kept one, a 991, and it's beautiful. It's nice. It's a really nice drive, and it drives nicely. You could tell where Porsche put its engineering money. It's in the suspension and chassis development, etc. But you can't get away from the fact that this hillbilly, compared to that, of a car, will take it anywhere. Straight line, it'll take it on the corners, it'll take it on the track. It just will. So I'm going to be paying double the price that I paid for this car to get less performance somehow. It just doesn't add up to me, and it shouldn't add up to you. The 911s compared to the C6 Z06, I would even take, frankly, a regular C6 Corvette Z51 package over a 911. It's going to be faster than a Carrera S. So price per performance, it's going to be hard to beat the C6 Z06. So since we're talking about price, we might as well talk about maintenance costs, because every vehicle needs maintenance. Even Teslas, by the way. It's a huge lie out there that electric cars don't need maintenance. They do. They require a lot of maintenance, just in different ways. The battery chemistry, etc. Obviously, the electric motors are a lot less maintenance intensive, but I believe in the future, you're still going to have cooling issues and cooling pumps and other things to worry about. So you're not scot-free. And so since every car needs maintenance, let's go over the 911 maintenance versus the Corvette Z6 Z06. Now, the Z06, as we've talked about ad nauseum at this point, suffers from the LS7 valve train issues. So it's a pushrod V8 pushing 7,000 RPMs. It's a race-derived engine with really high performance cam profile. It's one camshaft, and really high performance valve train. So that's going to require significant amount of attention and maintenance. Let's call it maintenance, because I am calling it maintenance. I consider the LS7 valve train a maintenance item. Sure, you fix it by replacing the valve train and replacing the heads with, let's say, K-Tech or others out there, and yeah, they're fixed. But every 100 hours or so of track time, maybe even 80 hours of track time, and every 20 or 30,000 miles of just regular driving or spirited driving, I would at least open up the engine again just for inspection. I would inspect the valve train. And there's a procedure on how to test it. You know, there's a valve clearance, valve guide clearance that they do. I would at least open it up to test it, because it's not a set it and forget it thing. It's definitely not. And that's going to be costly. But Porsche maintenance is something else. Let's say I went with a PDK Porsche 911, and I take it, and my intention was to take whatever vehicle I end up with to the track every once in a while, have fun, take it to the track, drive as much as I want, drive it to Orlando, drive it to whatever place, and just put miles on it, enjoy it, right? Enjoy it as I enjoy my S2000, for example. And I go to maintain it. Oil changes, I can do that, at my house, not a big deal. Brake pad and discs, very expensive. When it comes to outside of that, if you have bushing issues, if you have electronic issues, if you have sensor issues, if you have pulley issues, parts are astronomically expensive, and I don't think I want to work on a rear engine car. I'm not equipped for that. I don't want to relearn all of that. It may not be that difficult, but I'm just not in the mood to learn all of that. So maintenance for a 911 is definitely going to be more in the long run than maintenance for a C6 Z06 when you start tracking the 911. Now, tires, they might be a little cheaper possibly for the 911, but honestly, maintenance-wise, the Corvette C6 Z06 is going to beat the Porsche. So reason number 3, I went with the C6 Z06 over the Porsche, has to do with the design, the exterior design. If you look at a C6 Z06, especially in Jetstream Blue, if you look at one just on the street or parked, driving down the road, you could tell it's a special car. It looks super nice. It's super cool. The design is timeless, in my opinion. Same thing can be said, again, about the Porsche 911. Of course, it's a timeless design. But the reason it's a timeless design is different than the reason this is a timeless design. So the C6 design is timeless because I think it's impossible these days to make a car this kind of down low to the ground, this svelte, this really nice looking. I mean, the curvature, the curves and the fenders and the way everything fits together, it's just wonderful. But when you look at a Porsche 911, I'm going to offend a lot of people here, and I don't care. Again, I'll see you in the comments. It's a squashed Volkswagen Beetle. It's what it is. I mean, that's how it started out. It's just a squashed Volkswagen Beetle. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like the way the Beetle looks. I really do. But it's, even today, it's a sleek looking Volkswagen Beetle.
The Porsche 911. And here it is, a Volkswagen Beetle in running shoes.
And if you like that sort of thing, hey, that's awesome. You're gonna like the 911. But I'm not too sure I love it. It's an okay design. It does the job. And they haven't changed it in so long, so it literally is timeless. They've been making the same design for like 50, 60 years. But it just doesn't get my engine running, let's say, when I look at one. It's just like, oh, there's a 911, that's cool, right? There's kind of like a panache or some kind of cachet attached to it these days that I think is kind of nice. When you see somebody in a 911, you're like, oh, there goes, so-and-so Mr. Rich Guy or whatever. Some people like that. I actually don't like that. I prefer, Civics. I'm a big fan of the Civics. More on that in a little bit, but yeah, it's just, for me, the look of a 911 is not great. And the clincher for me was when I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, looking at these 911s, what do you think? And she's like, they all look kind of ugly. They look like an ugly frog. I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. They look like an ugly frog. And once she said that, I couldn't unsee it. I think they all do look like a frog. They're like a nice tailored down bullfrog. And hey, if that's the look you're going for, I get it. But I like car designs that are more, you know, sports car looking. And to me, the 911 just is not it. And this is very subjective, and you may love the way the 911s look, and 911s may be your dream car, but for me, the looks just ain't it, and it's hard to, you know, it's hard for a regular person to differentiate from a 991.1, 991.2, 992, 997, you know, 930s, you know, air cooled. Most people just think, oh, there's 911. You know, who cares about the year? So the last reason why I went with a C6 Z06 has to do with the culture around the Porsches and the culture around like higher end cars. 911s, Ferraris, and Lamborghinis. You know, some people like that culture, right? They wear expensive watches, they like expensive clothes. Nothing wrong with that. I don't want to, you know, I have a lot of family that's like that, and that's perfectly fine. I totally understand that way of life. I don't have anything against it, but it's just not for me. I don't identify it at all with it. I don't view any value in it for myself. The 911 crowd, the great majority of them, have a certain panache around them. There's a certain culture surrounding them about like, oh yeah, I go golfing, I have a country club, I have a, you know, expensive taste, expensive watch, expensive this, expensive that, and it's just not really for me. I mean, my favorite car is the Civic, a Honda Civic. It is the Type R, but it's the Civic. And the Honda S2000, a little 4-cylinder thing that cost me $8 grand when I bought it. I mean, I like the simple things. I like things that will last a long time, take a beating, don't look too flashy, don't overstate themselves, don't overdo it. It's just kind of my thing. So, and this is a very controversial topic, and you know, this should not be the reason you should buy a car. If you want a 911, don't worry about people calling you out and calling you you're rich. Who cares? I mean, if you really want one, it doesn't matter. This is like a minor thing, but overall, when you're comparing the Corvettes with 911s, that's the biggest difference. One of the biggest differences is the culture. I mean, another reason I like Civics and S2000s is because the people that buy them are usually, you know, lower income class, down to earth people. You know, I tend to gravitate more towards those kinds of guys and gals, and that's where I'm at. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe. Hit that like button or dislike if you're so inclined. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.